You'll know. Hi, everybody. It's Glenda MacDonald, the Story Finder, and I just want to welcome everybody. This is the launch for Maud and Me by Marianne Jones, and I'm going to pass it over to Tina Crossfield, the publisher of Crossfield Publishing, who is the host of the event. Take it away, Tina.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the virtual book launch of Maud and Me by Marianne Jones. I've known Marianne since May of last year, actually May 22nd, when her manuscript came across my desk. And I knew right away that this was a work that I wanted to publish and bring to the world. A little bit about Marianne. She was born and raised in Thunder Bay, Ontario, where she lives with her husband, Reg. Her work has appeared in Room, Wascana Review, Canadian Living, and Reader's Digest. And she has won awards from the Canadian Authors Association, Writer's Digest, and others. She also had a reading in October, a very fine reading, with Northwestern Ontario Writers Workshop. It was absolutely excellent. Much of Marianne's writing celebrates the unique beauty of Northwestern Ontario. She and her husband love music, theater, and ballroom dancing. It doesn't get any better than that.
No, it doesn't.
Together, they have 2 daughters and 2 granddaughters. And Marianne is currently at work on a mystery set in Thunder Bay. Now, for people who aren't familiar with that glorious North Shore of Lake Superior and the wonderful town of Thunder Bay, we have a treat in store. We're going to show you a very quick slideshow of the place where Marianne wrote this lovely book called Maud and Me. And we're going to begin actually right now.
Tina, we don't have any sound.
Okay, we're back on track here. Wasn't that wonderful? It's such a beautiful showcase of the North Shore. Okay, beautiful. Nice questions actually in our chat. These pictures are beautiful. Okay. We're going to now go to Marianne, who is going to speak about the concept for the book, how this came to be written. And I understand that it was a lengthy process and it took a lot of thought and time to settle to come up with the story. So Marianne, I'm going to turn it over to you now.
Okay.
You can go ahead anytime.
All right. Well, yes, it was a very lengthy process. It started over 20 years ago when I was at home in the morning, having my coffee, and suddenly a very vivid image came to me of a woman kneeling in her garden, putting in her bedding plants, and looking up, and there's Lucy Maud Montgomery standing there in her garden, which of course blows her mind. And Maud speaks to her and invites herself in for a cup of tea, and they end up becoming great friends. And it was so powerful that I grabbed my notebook and started scribbling it all down in a blur. It was almost as though it was being dictated. And then it got to a point and then it just stopped. The flow was gone. And I had no idea where to go from there, except that as I looked at it, I felt this really wants to be a novel. I'm not quite sure where or how or what form it's going to take, but it was too strong to ignore. And so I sort of played around with it over many years, and things began becoming clearer to me over time. I studied the published journals of Lucy Maud Montgomery, and to get a better sense of her, the real person behind the persona. And it occurred to me as that my main character, Nicole, and Maud had many things in common, that even though Nicole was a woman living in Marathon from the 1970s to the 1990s, and Lucy Maud had died in 1942, they were kindred spirits. They were both ministers' wives. They were both artists who they felt constricted in their roles and the expectations placed on them. They were both, therefore, very lonely, because it can be very unsafe in a congregation for a minister's wife to be too open about her real thoughts and feelings. And they both had been abandoned by their fathers at a young age. And they both were very attached to their landscape where they came from. In Ella Montgomery's case, that of course was Prince Edward Island. But in Nicole's case, it was the beauty of Northwestern Ontario. So I began working with various chapters, and then other projects came along, other books, and I would put that aside and attend to other stuff, and then find my way back to it again. So that's why it's been a very long thing in the making. But I did feel like this was the project that was closest to my heart. So it's a dream come true for me to finally see it come to fruition. So, did you want me to do a reading now?
Yes, that would be great.
All right. Silver light plays on the lake's surface. My thoughts dip and trail their fingers in the currents beneath. I shift on my faded chair on the dock. Broken bits from the white cumulus clouds change shape and melt on their blue canvas. A woodpecker drills intermittently, and a crane waits in the marshes with enviable stillness. I think of Adam back at home, wondering the same things that I'm asking myself. What am I doing here? Will I go back to Adam? Nothing had been the same since Maud. She had caused me to question everything, especially myself. Maud first appeared last spring. I was on my knees in the backyard, putting in bedding plants, when I saw her pulling a branch of lilacs down toward her face. Eyes closed, she was breathing in their fragrance. She wore a brown flowered midi-length house dress and Oxford walking shoes. Her gray crimped hair was mostly hidden under a cloche hat. I was puzzled by her old-fashioned attire and the sense of déjà vu that enveloped me. Her clothing was reminiscent of the things I had seen my grandmother wear when I was a child. But my grandmother had never worn her outfits with the sense of elegance and gentility that this stranger exhibited, with her white gloves and perfect posture. As I tried to identify the vaguely familiar face, a photograph came to memory. The face I saw had the same rimless glasses and kindly, intelligent expression as Ella Montgomery had in the photograph on the dust jacket of her books. I felt dizzy. There was more than a similarity. This was Lucy Maud Montgomery, late celebrated author of Anne of Green Gables, Emily of New Moon, and a score of others. Ella Montgomery, who died in 1942, long before I was born. I remained on my knees, gawping, unsure what the appropriate etiquette was in such a situation. She glanced at me and smiled. Don't you just love the smell of lilacs? They're so full of the promise of delights to come. Would you like some? It seemed the polite thing to do, to offer. Oh, could I? It's been so many years since I had flowers. I went into the porch for gardening shears, hoping she would be gone when I came back. A pre-migraine hallucination. It had to be. It probably wasn't a good idea for the minister's wife to be having visions. St. Paul, maybe, or the angel Gabriel, but I was pretty sure Ella Montgomery was not on the approved list. She was still there when I returned, studying the garden. Your roses would benefit from some good manure, she said. So few people know how to tend roses properly. Your pansies are nice, though. I'm just a beginner. I snipped off a few stems of white lilacs for her. She smiled as she accepted them. Thank you. That's so kind of you. Do you think perhaps we should take them inside and put them in water? I was uneasy about the idea of having her in the house, but couldn't think of a polite way to refuse. I led the way through the porch, removing my gardening shoes before entering the kitchen. She followed serenely, holding her bouquet as though she were the queen on a state visit. Would you like something to drink? Are ghosts able to drink, I wondered? A cup of tea would be lovely. More likely, she was an hallucination. They could do whatever they wanted. I put the kettle on and began to arrange the lilacs in a vase while we waited for the water to boil. When it was ready, I warmed the teapot, aware that she was watching. I retrieved two of my grandmother's china cups and saucers from the top cupboard. Maud would expect a teacup. Despite my sense of panic, I did myself proud. Linen napkins from a drawer, a gift from a church member who had visited Ireland. Cake I had made that morning. She sipped her tea with enjoyment. That's delicious. There's nothing like a good cup of tea. Are you here for any special reason? I asked. I mean, it's not just for flowers and a cup of tea, is it? Well, that's what I call getting straight to the point. No, that's all right. I like people who are direct and honest, much better than being sly. I think you and I are kindred spirits. You mean because we're both ministers' wives? No one understands the lot of a minister's wife better than another minister's wife. It can be a terribly lonely life. I so wished in my day that I had someone to talk to who understood. It would have made my life more bearable. My closest friend was my journal. It was the only place I could speak frankly, saying all the things I didn't dare say out loud in case one of my husband's parishioners was to overhear. That was a troublingly familiar sentiment. Her eyes traveled around my kitchen, taking in details with interest. Pardon my curiosity. I feel a teensy bit like Alice in Wonderland. What is that black box? I turned to see what she was looking at. It's called a microwave. It's an oven that cooks food very quickly. Seeing her intrigued expression, I thought I should demonstrate it to her. I took a bag of microwave popcorn from the cupboard. She watched intently as I pushed the controls with my finger, eliciting beeps from the kitchen, from the machine. She stooped, wide-eyed, to watch the rotating tray and the expanding bag with its small firecracker noises. When I took the bag out and opened it to reveal the popped corn, she looked as delighted as a child on Christmas morning. How amazing! Do you cook all your food in bags? No, but you can get a lot of things like that. I showed her the other appliances. I felt like a tour guide, enjoying impressing her as though I was personally responsible for the advances in technology. My kitchen was well appointed by 1991 standards. My husband Adam loved gadgets. Maud was amazed by everything, but was especially taken with the food processor. I wish I had had this during canning season. I usually enjoyed cooking, but after putting up jams and pickles and relishes, I could have slept for a month. The dishwasher is my favorite, I said, but then I don't can that much. Housework must be a pleasure with all these gadgets, Maud remarked. You'd think so, I replied. She peered at me sympathetically through her round, frameless glasses. What you are experiencing is the dark night of the soul. You and my husband struggled with it for years. In those days, of course, it was a terrible secret. The disgrace would have ended his career had anyone learned of it. I had to work terribly hard to hide it from people. I would smile cheerfully and tell everyone that Ewan was busy working on his sermons. Then I would go home and see him white and shaken, terrified that he was lost, that he had committed the unpardonable sin. I was at my wit's end. How did you manage? I asked. My work was my salvation. I got up early every morning before light and worked on my stories. I could escape the demands of my life for those few hours before it all began again. Without that, I think I would have gone mad. This is excellent pound cake. Not quite as rich as I used to make it, but quite nice. Are you saying I need a place of escape? I said, sliding the cake plate toward her. She shook her head slightly in refusal and dabbed at her mouth with a napkin. My dear, I don't presume to know what another person needs. I took refuge in doing my duty. It's remarkable how stable that will keep one through life's crises. And when my duties became too much, I turned to my imagination. I stood and went to the window to look out where the Brownlee's son, home from kindergarten, was riding his tricycle down the sidewalk. I hate this mask I have to wear, I said. She looked up in surprise. My dear, we all have our masks. Every single being on this planet. And a good thing it is, too. Our masks are what make survival possible. Even with our most intimate friends, there is always some element of pretense, some secrets we don't tell. I rubbed with my finger at a speck on the window. When I was in my teens, it was the fashion to want to strip away all pretenses. They were seen as hypocrisy. Maud tilted her head to one side and smiled at me. The very young and the very beautiful may look agreeable naked, but most of us are improved with some covering. I'm not sure I would want to live in a world where I was forced to see into the ugliest recesses of others' minds, or where they could see into mine. A little hypocrisy can be a very useful thing.
Tina?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you, Marianne. That was wonderful.
Thank you.
Oh, your descriptions are so clear, and I can just visualize everything. It's wonderful. Okay, we're going to take just a little quick break here. And Glenda, if you would like to show the information about the book, I'd like to talk about it a little bit. So actually, excuse me, I haven't really introduced myself. I'm Tina Crossfield. I'm the owner of Crossfield Publishing. We are a small independent press in Southwestern Ontario. About the book. Okay, I think you can see the screen there. Our host bookstore is Chapters in Thunder Bay, and they are going through a transition right now where they have been closed for months with only curbside delivery. And I was told by the store manager that they were having a really hard time getting books ordered in because books come from the outside and things from the outside weren't allowed into the store. So it was hard for them to continue selling curbside without new books coming in. And when I approached them about the book launch, we talked about having books dropped off at the store that could be sold as curbside books during the shutdown. I heard today that they are now transitioning from curbside to open. However, there is a small delay in getting Maud and Me into their database. It could take a couple of days. So for people who are in Thunder Bay and can go by the Chapters store, just maybe give them a day or two for them to get their systems back up and running. It's been a really tough time for them. And people in other locations across the country, you can go to your local bookstore and ask them to order from Fitzhenry Whiteside Distributors, which is where Crossfield books are warehoused and available for purchase and shipping to retailers. I know this sounds a little bit complicated, and it is complicated, but it will work as we get further into things opening up. The system will start to work again, and books from the Fitzhenry Whiteside Distribution Warehouse will begin to filter books back into bookstores and Chapters and Indigo stores. So we're on track for this. You may not be able to purchase it tomorrow, but it's coming. We do have books at the Chapters Thunder Bay store. The other way to order is directly from us at Crossfield Publishing. And I've put up our website information there, crossfieldpublishing.ca. There's a phone number as well. And there is another email where you can reach me directly at tcrossfee@gmail.com. And this will be posted at the end of the program because I know it's hard to write all these things down. So we do have lots of books at Fitzhenry Whiteside. Books are coming into Chapters Thunder Bay. Books will be coming into other Chapters and Indigo stores. We all need to take a deep breath and just let it unfold as the province begins to open up. So if there's any questions, please direct them to me at that email, tcrossfee@gmail.com. And I think we're going to move now to another reading from Marianne, a reading of your choice.
Okay.
And you may go ahead at any time.
Okay. Yes, just to clarify, some people have already ordered copies from the Indigo website, and they're telling me that they are getting their copies. So relatives in Ottawa received their copy, and the friend in Thunder Bay received a copy, and so on. So they are coming. And for those that live in Thunder Bay, yes, there are some copies right now at the chapter store. So, but only the Thunder Bay location. So, as well as I have copies too. So those that know me and know how to get hold of me can get them from me too. So anyway, Tina suggested I might like to read a poem. I'm always happy to read a poem. This is from my collection here on the ground. Let's see. Yes. And I will read the title poem, Here on the Ground. No, I never really got over the loss of you. Though to everyone's relief, I'm finally behaving myself. I make tentative impressions on my days now, like a child finger painting. And I'm pleased to see I still have prints, can make a mark with my thumb and fingers. Life is still sweet, and there are new blooms in my garden with Latin names to run. And I'm noticing again how the poplar branches undulate in a tango with the wind, while the leaves twirl and make soft sounds like castanets. I hear things again, the sluggish bee sullenly preoccupied with my delphinium, the waves, pushed by motorboats, reluctantly slapping the shore, the sounds of a choir singing spirituals on my tape player, the snarl of a power saw biting down a tree. But as you fly ever higher and farther from me, like a kite marking the sky with your brave colors, I stand ant-like below, knowing only this slender string connects us, and every tug wrenches.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, are we
Wonderful.
ready for some Q&A?
Yes, we are. Let's go there.
Okay, let's see. We've had a lot of comments coming in. It's just been wonderful. And Marianne, you probably haven't noticed the chat, but Jean is here who wrote the testimonial for your book. So I'm just going to start at the beginning and just pop through and look for the questions. And I'm going to pop them on the screen, and maybe Tina can read the question to you and make any further comments, and I'll look for the next question after that. Okay, just one second. Lots of comments about how pretty the slides were.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got a question from Diane, and I'll just show that for Tina.
Okay. Did you read any of Lucy Maud Montgomery's works when you were younger? If yes, which was your favorite?
Oh boy, yes I did. And to name my favorite, that's tough. Obviously, we all loved Anne. I liked the Emily books because Emily was a writer. And I remember my sister had a copy of one of her lesser known books, Kilmeny of the Orchard. And I loved that too. I'm not sure I had a favorite. They were all my favorites. Oh, The Story Girl. That was another one I liked. The Story Girl, yes.
Okay. Have you visited any historical sites important to Lucy Maud Montgomery's life? And if so, did they inspire you to write this story?
I did, in fact. I think I was 14 at the time. My parents visited Prince Edward Island, and my mom and I, pardon me, checked out the historical Lucy Maud Montgomery house. They painted it white with green gables. And so that was really, that was fun. And I remember as a child, well, I was young, I was struck by how small the rooms were. Because when you read the books, I don't get the impression, I'm sure to them their homes were very big, but of course our houses seem to keep getting bigger. And so that surprised me. And then we did go to the Charlottetown Festival, hoping to take in Anne of Green Gables, but what was playing at the time was Johnny Belinda, which was lovely. It was a little over my head at that age, but still, I remember that as a very memorable experience. But as far as inspiring me to write the story, you know, it's really hard to say because things just kind of compost in our minds. I remember as I was growing up, reading some biographies of Lucy Maud Montgomery and being fascinated that I knew I wanted to be a writer. And here was a famous Canadian writer who was a woman who, at the turn of the century, which was highly unusual. Not only that, she was world famous and she was quite wealthy from her books at the time. All of these things were really, they were very unusual. So I was impressed and inspired by that. The more I learned about her life, it is interesting because all her children's books are very sunny, have a very optimistic, upbeat view of life. But when you read her journals, you realize that was her public persona, but she wrestled a lot inside. She had a tough childhood, and then she had a tough life as a minister's wife and married to a man who suffered tremendously from depression. And she herself became depressed. And there was a lot of sadness and tragedy there too. But I was also impressed with how strong she was, because under all this incredible pressure, she still somehow managed to do it all and to carry on. And until the end of her life, when she couldn't carry on anymore. But where the inspiration for me came from that day, I have no idea. I have no idea. And that's always kind of hard to answer that question, because things are seldom just one item or a few items. It's at least for a writer, it's over the years, things just processing and from many different directions.
Okay, thank you. Also a question from Joanne Cully. Did you have a hard time deciding to use the first person voice as opposed to the third person perspective? So first person as opposed to third person.
I don't think I did. I like the first person voice. It's very immediate. And now in my mystery novels, I use third person. But that's how this story came to me. It just seemed right to use the protagonist, Nicole, and to write from her perspective. And I think it made it so much more personal that way. So, I think that just seemed right from the get-go that was the right choice.
Thank you. Okay, will your book be available in all chapters locations or just Thunder Bay? I'm working really hard on this. If the book is not at your favorite store, they can order it in. You just need to go to the counter and say, I want to order this book, and they will put the order through to Fitzhenry Whiteside. And as I said before, as things start opening up, those orders will become smoother and faster. Okay, that's from Kathy Winslow. Marianne, did you use actual quotes from Montgomery's journals?
I used, yes, sometimes. Like there is a long passage in there where Montgomery is talking about her experiences when I think the Governor General came to visit her, and they ended up, he didn't realize it, that they were actually having a visit sitting on the outhouse steps, and she was too embarrassed to tell him that that's where they were sitting. But I took the incident from her journals. I probably changed some of the wording, but there were others where maybe just a sentence or two that, yes, or a phrase I took directly from her journals. Nothing so long that it would be copyright violation.
Okay, thank you. Are there any more questions out there? Anything else you'd like to know about Lucy Maud Montgomery or Marianne Jones?
Oh, thank you, Elizabeth.
Mm-hmm.
That's very kind.
Yes, thank you. Oh, did you need to get permission from the Montgomery estate for the quotes?
No, because, thanks, Jean. No, like I said, I don't think they were exactly direct quotes, sort of more reworded. And they're published now, and I'm attributing them to the right person. I'm not putting them as my words, but as Lucy Maud speaking them. So no, but actually I did. Oh, and that, yes, you're asking an interesting question. Most of my research came from reading the selected journals, which are they're weighty tomes, and also one of the scholars who is one of the editors wrote a biography, The Gift of Wings. I read that because she really did get into all the nitty gritty. And then I sent copies. Thanks, Maureen. I sent copies of the manuscript to both editors. And and they were, well, unfortunately, one of them has his visual impairment. So she couldn't, she was unable to read it. The other one read it and said she loved the book and wrote a little endorsement for me. And so figured, well, if the editors were happy with it, then I should be on safe ground. And yes, for Diane's question, do you relate? Yes, Diane, I relate to the protagonist, Nicole, and I think you'll understand that when you read it. I don't think you'll find it hard to see why.
Okay.
Okay, I think that's pretty much it. There are lots of wonderful accolades in the chat section, and for anybody who knows someone who wishes that they could have attended but that they missed it, this recording is automatically done on YouTube, so that will be available through there, and we'll probably try and post the link to the Facebook page as well.
Mhm.
So I'm going to just pass it back to Tina, and I'll get that slide ready for the showing the shopping information. Just checking here, with a couple more comments coming in. Ellen Cruz, here, I'll pop this up on the screen. There we go. She's looking forward to promoting that in her book groups.
Oh,
Oh,
Ellen,
wonderful.
thank you so much, Ellen.
Yeah, so so I think I'll just get that slide ready, Tina, if you needed to recap anything from that. And then I guess after we show the slide, did you want to close while the slide is up and just say goodbye, or how would you like to end this?
Yes, I
Okay.
think that's fine. But maybe Marianne, you'd like to say goodbye first, and then I'll say goodbye after you.
And then I'll say goodbye.
I just want to thank everybody for coming, and thanks, Annette. It's great to have enthusiastic friends and supporters. Thanks, Kathy, and thank you to Glenda, and thank you to Tina for giving me this opportunity. Bye.
Okay. Okay, bye-bye. I'm gonna take Marianne off, and then it'll be like the Waltons, good night, John Boy and stuff. So it'll be I'm going to add the purchasing information, and Tina can chat, and then I will sign off at the end so everybody will know when it's finished. Okay, bye, Marianne.
Okay, bye, Marianne.
Thank you. It was a fabulous reading. You just did great. Okay, bye-bye.
It was great. Yes, just great. Okay. I'd like to thank everyone for attending our virtual launch. We would have loved to have done this in person, and maybe we will have an opportunity later in the summer. As I mentioned before, you can always contact me at tcrossby@gmail.com. I'm available. I can direct you how best to order your copy. And I'd like to wish everyone a very peaceful and calm good evening. And
Okay.
thanks again. And thanks, Glenda.
Okay, thanks very much, Tina. And I'll just leave you up there while I say goodnight as well, so we'll both see it ending. Yeah, and Tina and Marianne have just done a fantastic job of getting the word out about this book, and they're just a delight to work with. And I'll be continuing to work with them to help promote the book. And oh, Tina, is it all right if I mention about the women's fiction?
Oh, yes.
Why don't you
Yes.
why don't you tell this little surprise information?
Okay, so we're having another event soon, within a couple of weeks. I'll be sure to send the word out. It's 4 fabulous, dynamic women of fiction evening panel in the works.
Yeah, and so I think I'll be involved in helping to set that up. Probably, I'm not sure. I'm assuming.
Couldn't do it without you.
Okay, well,
couldn't do it without you.
Well, that's a nice endorsement for hashtag the story finder. Certainly, I just as an aside, one of the things that's happened as a result of COVID that no one ever could have expected, because I've been working with Tina and her authors for a couple of years since we met at the Ontario Library Association at her booth at the Ontario Book Publishers Organization Book Expo. And, we were involved with live launches and physical events for a couple of years. And then, boom, one of our authors had a book launch that was supposed to happen, and COVID hit, and we had to pivot and start doing everything virtually. And it's been quite a learning curve. But the ironic thing is, if there's a silver lining to COVID, it's that it forced us to try something different that's actually increased the reach of our events. So we have recordings now, more people can attend. Our David Pelly event had people from Newfoundland and Singapore. This is a global audience now. And I think that even when we go back to a physical event, I would love to see us incorporate some type of a virtual opportunity so that we don't lose that global audience as well. So anyway, so that's it. I'm going to put that slide up one more time. And so, and then I'll take us off. And so good night, everybody. The broadcast will end very shortly. Thanks very much for attending. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Okay, that's it then. Okay, so that's the final screen with the ordering information. Come back to this YouTube channel and continue to make your comments, and we'll try and watch those. Make sure that you do come to the Facebook page as well for Maud and Me, the book by Marianne Jones, and also subscribe to the YouTube channel for Crossfield Publishing if you like, and we'll keep you posted, of course, on all of our future events coming up. Thanks so much for attending. Good night.